This is the Art Beauty Podcast where we tell the real truth about the fake shit. Hi, everybody. My name is Amber, and today my fabulous co-host is Shelly Marshall. She is founder of the Beauty Shamans. That's beautyshamans.com. We're going to be talking all about face yoga, the importance of self-care. Before we get into all of this, though, I want to welcome you to the show today, Shelly. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
So today is Valentine's Day, and I feel like for some people actually, I'm going to stop that. I don't really think that anybody, even in a relationship, like it matters. Maybe people who are newly dating, it matters, but I've been married for 13 years and I personally could not give a rat's ass about Valentine's Day. How about you?
Same. I don't care at all. Yeah. For us, Valentine's Day is every day, but
Yeah.
But it is a time when people reflect on the things that they love in life. So
Which I think you should do every day. I find that more importantly, like a lot of my amazing, badass women in my life who are, fabulously single, find this to be really depressing. And I hate that about that. And I thought maybe today we could really focus a little bit more on like the importance of self-love, right? And so if you're not going out tonight for an overpriced, ridiculous dinner, maybe what you could do is take a little bit of time and, give yourself that self-care, right? We never need an excuse for that, but it's always nice to do it. Before we get into some self-care tips, before we get in, you are going to be doing a tutorial of exactly how we can do some of this face yoga, facial massage. You have a really interesting background. Can you tell us sort of where you started and how you ended up becoming, a beauty shaman?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess I always had an interest in skincare. And I think that always happens for people who struggle with their own skin when they're younger. So, I had horrible skin growing up and I was just told it's bad luck, it's genes, deal with it, you'll grow out of it, it's fine. So I really just felt like I had no control over it. I just had to wait, use the creams that the doctors would prescribe me. But because I was so interested in skincare, I decided to go into it. And because I wanted to learn more about how to, what are the right products to put on my skin and what I should be doing for my skin at home. Things like that. And, through that process, I also somewhere in there became a nurse and, started learning a little bit more about like the science and, how the human body works and stuff like that. And that was a very humbling experience, but I eventually went back into skincare. And what I, just through learning, because I do a lot of my own, I'm always educating myself and learning as much as I can. And what I really came to realize is that skincare is so much more than just what we put on the face. It is there's so many layers. And what I came to the conclusion is that skincare for me is more of a spiritual practice. And it's something that I have to, kind of like my own little religion. I'm honoring my body. I'm honoring, the things that I want to see in my life, in my own face when I look in the mirror. And so I really had to work on this sort of inner transformation. And you see like a lot of people go through inner transformations when they go through something difficult or go through struggle, like addiction or weight loss or, things like that. You see the physical results, but what we seldom hear about is the inner transformation that people go through. And I had to go through that myself. And I had to go through this sort of, self-talk and, becoming my own best friend and learning all of these different things using the scientific background that I had, but also the artistic sort of more creative skincare background that I had. And I came up with the term or, the idea of beauty shamans because beauty is an expression of our health, right? So in order to be beautiful, we want to be healthy. And every decision that we make in our life, down to the tiny, tiny little decisions, need to have that sort of lens. And, the word shaman, shaman is like a traditional, village healer or someone who, was appointed within their tribe to, do the healing and to enter into these altered states of consciousness to get answers and then to help the community. And for me, I don't think that I am a shaman. I have a lot of respect for that name. But for me, the term or the word shaman represents entering into that altered state of consciousness, elevating your consciousness and changing your perception of yourself and the world around you, so that you can then make those decisions that are best for your health or for your beauty.
Right. Wait, I want to, I mean, there's so much to unpack with what you just said. I want to go way back. So first of all, for anybody who's not watching this, if you were just listening to this podcast on one of the podcast platforms, you have to check out your Shelly's Instagram, which is at Beauty Shamans. Shelly, you have the most gorgeous skin
Oh, thank
ever.
you.
So, what kind of, if you don't mind my prying, like what kind of skincare problems did you have? Because I mean, I would look at you and think, wow, maybe she's born with it, right? Maybe it's just good genes.
No, definitely not. It was definitely a genetic thing for me. Both of my sisters and myself, and my parents still have scars too. We all had horrible skin. So like I had really, really bad acne that started when I was about 9 years old.
Okay.
And so it kind of went through, grade school, middle school, high school, college. I kind of dealt with it. That whole time. I was also, I grew up in sunny California. I was in the sun a lot. I was playing sports. I didn't wear sunscreen, so I had a lot of residual scarring from picking and from trying to pry things off of my face rather than trying to heal them. I was trying to, rip them off. So I had a lot of scarring. And I mean, I'd say now, my biggest concerns are acne scars and pigmentation. But I mean, thankfully, I've kind of moved out of dealing with the acne because I got to the root of that. And I have a new set of skin concerns now. I thank you so much for the compliment. If you looked a little closer, you would probably see, I still have residuals and residual scarring, but you know what? I've come to really appreciate my scars. I think they tell a lot about who I am. They remind me of, how to be humble and how to be kinder to myself and to others.
I love that. By the way, I had a great lesson from somebody once who said that scars are proof that the world tried to hurt you and you wouldn't let it. Right.
I
So
love
that's such a
that.
great thing, like, right. Where you were like, nope, I got this. You can
I love
try, but I'm
that.
going to bounce back. But
Yeah.
I am telling you, I'm just blown away because I did a deep dive on your Instagram, which has incredible information. You do so many videos about, how to take care of our skin, doing this face yoga. So I know we're going to get a lesson, but I'm telling you at home, go check this out. But boy, your skin looks radiant.
Thank you.
So I want to thank you. And I'm sure there's so many people out there, we've been doing this podcast for years and we talk to so many people in the beauty industry who suffered from acne and that can be really debilitating as a young person.
Yeah, it can be emotionally and physically scarring, spiritually
Yeah.
scarring. It takes, when you're young and that's going on, that's really your whole world that invades every little nook and cranny of your existence and sort of creates your identity. And that's how I felt I was identifying with the world is I'm the
Yeah.
girl with acne. And it
Yeah.
was so hard to build my confidence. And that's where the inner transformation really came in, is that I had to really, make the conscious decision to want to have good skin. That's the first step, is that you have to want to have it. And then once you decide, okay, I'm going for it. I'm going to heal my skin. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do everything I can. Then you have to, put that into action and actually, follow through with all the decisions that you make. And it does not happen overnight. And I think that's sometimes what people get caught up with. You're going to have days where you have setbacks, where you have that breakout, or you have that day where you're just not feeling your best. You just have to keep moving forward, be blessed that you're alive and that you're healthy otherwise. And, you just keep marching forward. And then one day you're going to wake up, and even if you see blemishes, wrinkles, pigmentation spots, whatever, if you've really done the work, you're going to look in the mirror and you're just going to see beauty. If you see beauty, you know what I mean? Like when you actively try to see beauty in the world, then everything's going to become more beautiful and you're going to become more beautiful at the same time. Like attracts like. It's the whole power of manifestation.
I love that. And I am not, I wouldn't consider myself a deeply spiritual person, but I do believe in grounding yourself in gratitude. And that really does change. I always grew up where no matter what happened, good or bad, my parents would always let me talk about it. Oh, my doll broke, my dad be like, okay, this happened to you, so therefore it is super important. But now let's look at all of the people in the world who never even got to have a doll, right? And it sounds so sort of silly, but it's kind of like acknowledging your problems, accepting them, and also letting yourself have them, right? Like that matters
Yeah.
to you, whether it's something sort of superficial or something really deep and tragic, allowing yourself to go through it, but then also kind of looking at the beauty in the world and being grateful to, be alive and be able to even have these problems to begin with. I think that
Yeah.
is so
Very often,
beautiful.
very often we, in our house, if there's something going on, we just say, okay, it's a first world problem,
Yeah.
and we're really lucky in that sense. Like, we're so lucky that those are the problems. We just need to be grateful. And like you said, when you have that gratitude, it just changes your whole perspective. It changes your consciousness in a
Yeah.
sense. That completely, transforms everything.
I mean, I gotta tell you, it was when I think it was like 35 the first time I went home, and my Jewish dad was like, we're gonna start praying now before we eat. Mind blown, right? So my mother was Protestant, came from a very religious family, like they would pray before every meal. But my dad sat down and he's like, okay, thank you, God, for my family being here. Thank you for this meal. Watch out for all the people right now who haven't had a meal in the 24 hours. Also, I'm trying to sell my house right now. So if you could help me with that, that would be great too. And we died.
Keep that one
We left
in.
we left so hard, but I was like, you know what? I like your relationship with God. Good for you, to
Yeah.
have your own personal relationship. But I will tell you, I grew up without religion, spirituality, but my husband and I say a prayer every night before it's just good to say out loud the things that you are grateful for. I believe
Mhm.
that it kind of, like you said, like attracts like, and it will kind of give you, um, I don't know, a better grounding.
But
Okay.
it radiates that energy out into the universe.
I also love that you picked up on something else that was really kind of good. And part of the reason I do this podcast, it's unsponsored, this podcast, but you said that good skin takes work. And I think that so many people are looking for, myself included some days, that miracle in a jar, that miracle in a needle, that miracle laser that's going to fix everything and do everything. And it doesn't, right? Like our skin's the biggest organ. So just like going to the gym and working out, this stuff takes time. Um,
Yeah,
I think,
absolutely. I will be the first to say, I've been in the skincare industry for over 15 years, but I've been into skin since I was obviously nine years old.
yeah.
And there is no quick fix. Zero. It does not exist. You have to put in the work. And that's why, I discovered that, touching your face has so many benefits. Looking in the mirror and, just being with yourself and taking that moment to look at yourself, to be with yourself, to touch your skin, to touch your face, to have that gratitude. Obviously there's physical benefits to touching your face, which we'll, go into in a minute. You can help to increase circulation, help to release tension in the muscles, because a lot of times that's what wrinkles form from, is just us carrying so much stress, because
Oh,
our tissues hold our issues. So there are ways that you can manipulate your face and massage your face to get that all out. But more so than that, just touching your face, the energy that radiates from your own hands, and you can charge your hands with whatever you want, love, like distaste, whatever. You can put the energy and the power literally into your hands. You touch your face, you're doing certain movements, and that right there helps to connect with your deeper self. And, I think all too often, especially in this day of, social media and computers and, just the modern world, we are so disconnected
oh
from
yeah.
ourselves, totally disconnected from ourselves. We're always looking at other people and not enough looking at ourselves in the mirror and checking in and asking, like, what is it that my skin is asking for today? What is it that my soul is asking for today? How can I reflect and learn and grow and become a better person to myself? Because that's really how we heal the world, is by healing ourselves first. So we can only, just like with the airplane gas mask,
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
yeah, you put yours on first so that you can help others. And that's what this practice is about, is, helping yourself and healing yourself on an individual basis first.
So I know that, like, it seems to me that Gua Sha facial yoga has really like only just come into like the everyday conversation, in the past couple years, but this is a practice that's been around for a long time. Am I right?
So Gua Sha has been around for a long time, but I would say it has been around more as a modality for healing the body, where
Okay.
you use more vigorous strokes to help to bring up the Sha, the blood, right? And that helps to, dispel any toxins and stuff like that. So you notice, like with acupuncturists and traditional Chinese medicine practitioners, when they perform Gua Sha, or Gua Sa is the more appropriate term to use, it actually you'll see almost like hickey, like
Yeah.
it's very red and purple, and it almost looks like a rug burn type thing on the body. The idea of using it for the face is relatively new.
Okay.
And it's kind of like the beauty industry has just adopted using a gua sha tool as a new beauty practice to help with depuffing the face, reducing fluid retention, helping to contour, stuff like that. Face yoga, facial massage, I want to say, have also been around for a long time, but just not, I mean, how can you really make money off of that, right? I mean, that's what like, not to say anything bad about like medical aesthetics. I'm a nurse. I used to inject people. I know the benefits. I also know the not so good things about that side of beauty. But like, you couldn't make a buck off of it.
Yeah.
Now you kind of can, because we have all this, like, internet and virtual interactions that we integrate with on a daily basis.
Okay, so for people who might be sort of new to this practice, I want to make sure that we get in this, demonstration that you're going to give. And like I said, go to at Beauty Shamans, because you've got so many easy to do ones on your Instagram site. But can you walk us through something, for sort of a newbie, if we're sitting around
Yeah.
tonight, not going out on that fancy dinner, that we could do at home to get sort of started in this sort of facial massage practice?
Yeah, absolutely. My absolute favorite thing to do is actually a neck stretch. And I know it doesn't really have to do with the face, but it does, because a lot of times the tension that you hold in the neck, or just from looking at a screen, from, being on your phone or being on the computer, it actually shortens the neck. And when that happens, this whole muscle that's attached, the platysma muscle that it's attached here, and it comes up the face and it attaches here. When it is short, when it is not stretched, it starts to pull everything down. It
Right.
starts to create all this stagnation of fluid, and you start to see the double chin. So my absolute favorite thing to do, it's also just a great warm up to, to get ready for your facial massage or face yoga or gua sha, is just to hold right here at the base of the neck, and you're going to soft pucker your lips. So not a real hard, firm pucker, but just like you're going to give the juiciest kiss. And you just look up a little bit into the air. And I call this kiss the moon. And you're just moving your head back and forth.
Oh my God, my neck is cracking so loud right now.
Yeah.
But
And
this
you
feels
should be,
so good.
yeah, and you should be feeling, a little bit of that pull right underneath the chin area. You should be feeling a little bit of tension release in the
Yeah.
back of the neck. This is helping with so many different things in the face. And it's so easy to do. You can do this in the shower. You can do this right when you wake up. Just simple stretching the neck so that you release the tension, and it helps everything to lift up a little bit more. And then my second pose that I think is also really, really easy to do and great for if you have dark under eye circles, is
Mm.
to stretch the whole face, because when we stretch these muscles, it helps to increase circulation, to detoxify and get rid of all the darkness and the toxins under the eyes. It also helps to stimulate our lymphatic system so that the fluid starts to move out. And that one is also super simple. You just drop your jaw into the big O. You don't wrinkle up right here, more like an O. Okay. Uh-huh. And then just tap, going outside. That little extra stretch makes all the difference in the world.
Uh, I'm like, oh, trying to talk during it. And how long should we be doing this for?
You can do it for It's whatever you're comfortable with. I would say if someone is brand new starting, do about, 3 sets of 30 seconds with
Okay.
each pose, and then you may get to the point where you want to do it longer. You want to add in some other movements, or, you want to just start incorporating it throughout your day, because it's just easier for you to get it in that way. So those would be my top two face yoga starter moves. And then obviously you can always learn more. You come to my Instagram. I have so many face yoga poses. And then I also have my Skin Within studio where I teach a lot of this stuff as well.
So, and actually, before we move on, for your Skin Within studio, where can people find out more information on that?
On my website, beautyshamans.com, or if you're visiting my Instagram, it's linked in the bio. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. For people, like I said, who are maybe new to this, how long should we be doing it? What is the right amount? I guess it could be personal for everybody. Is it kind of like working out? You start slow and you ramp up?
No, not necessarily. A lot of the classes in my studio, they're all between 5 and 20 minutes. And I think that
Okay.
that's a really good amount of time. And it doesn't really matter, some days you might be busier. So you want to do something that's like 10 minutes long. And then some days you're like, I have time. I want to zen out. I want to just get into my face. Let me do a 20-minute workout. Any longer than that, and you could be, creating irritation on the skin. A lot of times people say to me, oh, but isn't tugging and pulling at the skin gonna create more wrinkles? And my answer to that is, first of all, no, because what we're doing is we're creating more flexibility in the face. And when you create more flexibility in the face, you're not going to have that cracking. The fascia is going to be looser. It's going to be able to allow the muscles to move in a more natural way without creating those creases. But also, I forget where I was going with that, but
We talk about facial creasing. Is the pulling and tugging going to be dangerous? Which you actually had jumped right on that question. Is pulling and tugging your skin something that could
oh,
cause
yes,
wrinkles?
yes, I'm sorry. When it's a temporary thing, when
Mhm.
you're touching your face temporarily, it's actually going to have a lot of benefit, whereas something that's permanent. So you think about people who are constantly sleeping on one side of their face. That's like 8 hours.
Yeah.
Okay, so you compare an 8-hour amount of pressure to 15 minutes of facial manipulation for the fascia or the muscles. You're not creating wrinkles. You're,
Right.
like I said, you're creating more of that movement. So more blood can flow, more energy can come in, more tension can be released from the muscles. The fascia can actually move. And it's the fascia really that's creating those wrinkles.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is something that we can feel safe about doing at home. You mentioned that you have studio classes. Is that something that is only in person or is it virtual?
It's all virtual. I
Great.
do offer one-on-ones as well, but most of the whole studio is a virtual. It's kind of like a workout app. Like
Right.
you just go on and say, oh, I'm going to do that one today. Okay. And then we do it together.
So I have to ask you, because again, you are one of the most beautiful women I've ever seen. You are stunningly
Oh, thank
gorgeous and
you.
radiant. How often are you doing this personally? Is it an everyday thing? Is it, a
I
couple
would
times a week?
I would say 4 times a week without fail.
Okay.
But I would say maybe 5 or 6 nights out of the week, I'm doing like maybe something little. Maybe I'm so busy that I can't do a whole routine, but throughout the day, I'm, doing different face yoga poses. I'm massaging my face or just, releasing some tension on the forehead or something like that. It might be really mini, but I make a point to touch my face every day. Or, if I'm working more on, I want to work on my complexion today, then I'll just be like, okay, I'm not going to do any of the facial massage stuff today. I'm going to do like a mask and like an exfoliation, and I'm going to steam and, stuff like that. So I do like to do something every day, but in terms of like the exercises, I would say probably 4 times a week.
Okay, again, and reinforcing that you said, this isn't an overnight thing. You have to put work into it. This takes time. It's like anything else in life. You want the good results, you have to work towards them. Um, I do want to talk a little bit about your skincare line. But before we get into that, you talked about touching your face. And I think, I can't even believe we're still talking about this, but we are still kind of coming out of COVID where everything was like, don't touch your face, don't touch your face, don't touch your face. So one, I assume you want wash your hands beforehand?
Yes, you always want to have clean hands, and you always want to have a clean surface. So I always recommend washing your face first if you can. If you're,
Okay.
if you're just doing like a pressure point or just like face yoga poses, then it's not really necessary. But if you're doing like deeper facial massage, if you're doing Gua Sha, always wash your hands, wash your face, wash your stones. If you're doing anything like that, you want to use a light layer of, of an oil or something. And, less is more. You don't need a, 2 dropperfuls of oil. You're just going to be slipping and sliding all over the place. You need a little bit of resistance. So I recommend, usually, depending on how big your face is, and if you want to get the neck to, anywhere from 3 to 6 drops of oil. And then you warm it up in your hands, you put it all over, and then you add if you need more. It's always easier to add later.
Thank you. I was going to ask, do we need any sort of lubrication for this? But you want to start with a clean face, start with your clean hands, clean tools, add your 3 to 5 drops, and then get to work. So let's talk about, you now have a skincare line. And from what I was reading, although I'll let you tell me, seaweed was a really important component of that to you. Why is that?
I would say 2 major reasons. Number one, I'm half Japanese. So I grew up eating a lot of seaweed. I always knew about the benefits of seaweed. We would always have it in the house. We're going to have rice with nori, like it was just always a thing. And I would always hear about how it's so amazing for your body, all the minerals and all the trace elements, and how it just, helps to detox. And it's just a really great superfood. So I always kind of had that in the back of my mind. But then when I became a nurse, one of the things that we were always looking at every single morning before the doctors would make their rounds was, let's look at the electrolytes. Let's look at the, look at all the numbers, look at those little microbial, like, the tiny, tiny little minute details about what's going on in their human body, because that would tell a lot about, what's going on with their treatment, the medication, just the whole disease process that they were dealing with. And so it was really one of those things where it was like, okay, if they're looking at those tiny little details, why are we not looking at that for health? Like, we're helping these really sick people, helping to balance those elements and those minerals in their body and the electrolytes and the vitamins. Why are we not doing it for ourselves? And so, seaweed just kind of came up as like, this is like a really amazing superfood that has all of these things. I don't have to necessarily write vitamin C on my label, because seaweed is so naturally rich in vitamin C. Now we add vitamin C anyway, but it's also, it's so rich in all of these ingredients like beta carotene. Seaweed and algae is one of the biggest sources of beta carotene, which, as we know, beta carotene converts to vitamin A in the body or in the skin, on the skin. So it just has all of these properties that I just felt was so healing. And it comes from the ocean, which is where all life comes from. And, our whole planet is 70% water. Our bodies are 70% water. And it's not even pure water. It's an isotonic saline solution. It's a saltwater solution. So we're made of this stuff, and our earth is made of this stuff. And we know the benefits of why it's so good. Why are we not using it every day? Hippocrates would always tell his, patients back in the day, at least, you read about this, he would always say, you have aches and pains, go in the ocean. You have depression, go in the ocean. You have anxiety, go in the ocean. It was always this universal healing solution. So I just felt it was an obvious choice to formulate with that as the star.
Amazing. And the beach is my happy place. By the way, I just have to ask you, were you doing an impression of your mother before, when you were like, we're going to have no...
I think so.
I love it. So my mother, which people who've listened, so my mother is half Korean, adopted during the Korean War, into the deep South. But I love, because sometimes when I imitate my mom, I give her like a really heavy Southern accent. And she does not have one at all. Like, there is no, like, a little bit. She grew up in the South. She was adopted into the South. But I love that. I love when we're kind of like, we're going to have Nori. The way that you said it was very, sounded like.
It's very my mother. Yes.
So first of all, I want to thank you so much for your time on here. I really do want to encourage people to go and check out your Instagram. If people are interested in knowing more about the product line, and the tools that you recommend, where can they go?
You can go to beautyshamans.com. I have a bunch of different fun skincare tools that I've created, and they do different, they have different meanings and different ways that you can use them. And that's all at beautyshamans.com.
Amazing. And an incredible, like I said, I cannot push it enough. Go to your Instagram. I mean, you are posting so many videos. And if nothing else, your skin is so stunning. It's inspiring to watch.
Thank you so much.
And of course, everybody listening at home, number one, happy Valentine's Day. I hope that you do a little bit of self-care, even if you're going out on that date tonight. I think it's a nice way to sort of set yourself up and set the mood. Remember,
I'll give one little extra. If you're going out
yeah.
and you need your cheeks to look nice and rosy, a little bit of natural blush, just bring a little circulation to the cheeks, and then practice your smile, and you're going to have that beautiful smile for yourself.
I love that you just said that, because it's like we put on makeup, I think a lot of the point of makeup is to, aside from those glam looks that we do, but is essentially to make ourselves look healthy, right? And blush is one of those things that you're adding in to make it look like you've got that pink circulation in your cheeks. What about for the lips? For those of us who might be doing some kissing tonight.
This is the perfect one.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And if you're trying to get rid of the lines up here, you just clean hands, of course. Oh. You just smooth them out, because it's the fascia that's creating that wrinkle.
Oh, good. So you can undo all of that kissy face that you're going to do later tonight. We hope.
Yeah.
Yep. Even if it's just to yourself in the mirror.
Exactly.
Shelly, you are such a gem. I loved having you on. Thank you so much. Everybody at home, if you have questions you want me to pass on to Shelly or her team, I'm always happy to do that. You can email me at hello@artbeautypodcast.com. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Art Beauty Podcast. And as always, we will see you next Tuesday, hopefully with like a brighter, shinier, more relaxed, healthy face. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.